It is pouring down rain here. It's a mess.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Same here. Same here. You're all giggly. You got the frothy Java.
Yeah.
Boing, 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 boing.
Yes. This bubble is brought to you by coffee.
So I wonder, let's see, does coffee act differently in different Enneagram personality types?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yes.
Now,
Definitely.
that would be a whole episode all to itself. And today we're just going to like scratch the bare minimum surface because Brittany and I have been talking a lot about Enneagrams in our first 5 or so episodes that we've done. And I'm like, Brittany, we kind of need to do a show that's a little different than the kind of show we do. Because when we go into conversation, it's one step, 10 million steps deeper really fast. This week's not going to be as much of that. We'll try to do a little bit of that when we talk about our own personal Enneagrams, and we'll do that later in the show. But we've talked about this whole Enneagram so many times. I'm like, we have to just educate people about it. By the way, Jimmymoore, Brittanydavis, One Step Deeper Podcast, onestepdeeperpodcast.com. Go find us over on Instagram, One Step Deeper Podcast, on Facebook, One Step Deeper Podcast Community, which we have 500 people over there now, so it's growing really fast. So, so we're growing, and I'm not sure, but this is scheduled to be the first one out as a brand new episode on the new podcast as well. So lots of great things happening, guys. Happy 2021. We are so glad you are joining us. We are in the Monday slot here in the podcast world, but Brittany and I have been doing something with the previous episodes. YouTube has this cool feature that lets us premiere episodes. And so Brittany and I are going to premiere our brand new episodes, including the one, those of you watching right now, on January the 3rd, on that Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, we'll premiere this. So come chat with us. Brittany and I are in there chatting like crazy, and we would love to have your interaction there as well. But that's all the housekeeping stuff out the way. Let's talk about Enneagram, because you, my friend, are one of the craziest people about Enneagrams I've ever met. I know a couple others that are into Enneagrams, but I'm like, they ain't into it like Brittany is. So why don't you tell us where it came on your radar screen and why you're so infatuated with it?
So I've always loved to learn about myself. I feel like the biggest thing that we've been given in this life to learn about is ourselves. And so many people miss out on so much in life because they don't learn about themselves. So taking personality tests is something that I've done throughout the years, and they're never really super accurate, and they're never really based on anything, and never really had any merit. And so I had a friend of mine. Yes.
I was going to say, what, the ones on Facebook that say, what pop star are you? I'm Justin Bieber. No, I'm Britney Spears. No, those don't, there's nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I mean. You know, I take those, but they didn't really pan out to anything that made a difference in my life. And so several years ago, I had great friends of mine, their sisters, Lindsay and Leland, and they said, oh, we took this. We know you would like this. You take it. You see what you think. And so I took this test, and I was infatuated with learning my Enneagram number. And then it just, as I learned about myself and I learned about the tendencies, and I'm reading all these things, I was like, absolutely, yes, 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 yes. And it's never condemning. It's just giving you raw information and data, which I love because I'm nerdy, of your tendencies and the way you think and process things. And so it helped me see those things, uncover those things. And then everybody around me was like, you got to take the test. You got to take the test so I can understand you and how you work, so I can have a conversation with you, so we can grow together in a relationship. And everything just started to intertwine. And I just kept going deeper and deeper. And it is definitely on my list to take some kind of course to get certified in Enneagram, because it is just so fascinating to me.
How long ago was that, Brittany?
Maybe 2 years.
A couple years. So you've been immersed in for a couple of years. And guys, if you look up Enneagram, which it's Enneagram, go look it up. You can Google it. But there's one specific test that Brittany likes, and I took the test that she recommended, eclecticenergies.com. And it's the first test on there. This is the longer version. Take the longer version. It's about 10 or so pages of about 10 to 12 questions each. But the reason you take the long form is you kind of want to get into the nitty gritty of what makes you tick, so you get a more accurate Enneagram number. So she took hers and got a number, and then you just started deep diving into your number. And then you had me do it probably 6 or 8 months ago. And as soon as I got my number back, she's like, I knew it. I knew exactly what you were, because you've been doing kind of all the research on this. And we definitely want to go over each of the numbers. It's not a lot of them, guys. It's 1 through 9. So, right, 1 through 9? Yes.
Yeah, 9. There's 9.
Great. So we'll go over those here today. And I guess, why don't we do that right now? And then you and I will kind of camp in our own numbers and talk about what those qualities are. So that'll be interesting. And then people can go do their own research. And by all means, guys, go to eclecticenergies.com, take the long form test, and let's see what yours is. Because if you know what your Enneagram number is, then it helps you understand when we go one step deeper on other topics about stop shooting yourself, about how do you handle people you don't really like, all the little topics we talk about. It's going to give you such a deeper, richer experience listening to our podcast.
Absolutely. And not just within yourself, but you can, as you learn yourself, start with you, your Enneagram number, start with that, and then start learning the people around you. And then you know how to interact with them. So it makes those hard situations and other personality types a lot easier for you to manage if you understand why they are the way they are. So Eclectic Energies is where to take the test. And most of the information that I'm giving today, which is a lot, but just scratching the surface, is from Enneagram Institute. So if you want to look more into your number, they have everything from your basic fear, your basic desires, what motivates you in life, the famous people that are like you, who you're best compatible with, all of this, just a long, huge information set of that. So once you get your number, you can go over there. But to go ahead and start scratching the surface of this, there are 9 interconnected personalities, and all of these personalities just kind of describe the way that you behave based on your basic fears and desires. And I guess we're just going to get started on 1, which just so happens to be who I am. By the way, just because there's no difference in scale of good to bad, 1 to 9, they're all equal. Nothing is good, nothing is bad. This is raw data information.
Well, and they can express either good or bad. And we'll talk about some of that as well, that you've got qualities about you and your personality that you could channel to a positive way or channel to a negative way. And you probably know people in your life that channel both ways.
Absolutely. And I actually have a couple of those in here, what it looks like to be your highest self versus what it looks like to be an unhealthy version of this. And just, I'm only going to go over the basics, but you can have a wing, and then you can have all of it. It goes so deep and interconnected. Definitely goes like 10 steps deeper with Enneagram.
Just trying to whet your appetite today, guys, to learn more, because we will reference Enneagram again and again and again in future episodes. So you can't say, gee, what's the Enneagram? Well, episode 6 is going to be your reference point if you need to know what it is.
Yes. So let's go ahead and start with type 1. I am the most versed in type 1 because that is what I am. That is, they are known as the reformer, and their basic fear is of being corrupt or defective. They're hyper perfectionists and everything must be perfect. Their basic desire is to be good and balanced and have integrity. And that is definitely me. Some key motivations, things that motivate them, is they want to be right. Jimmy, don't laugh. They want to improve everything within their life cannot go untouched to be improved.
Which is why you can't take a compliment well. Because if you're complimented, you're like, no, I haven't achieved yet. No, you've achieved a lot. Like, you're really good on the podcast. Like, oh, no, I could be so much better. I still do this and this and this wrong. And da-da-da. No, you do good. You're great. Your people love you. And it like hurts me to hear you like not even like accept a compliment that's legit, because that perfectionism doesn't let you go there.
So the next one of the motivations that I wrote down, because I was like, oh my gosh, Jimmy's going to call me out, is they want to be beyond criticism so that no one condemns them. So they're so hyper perfectionist within themselves that they don't want to give anybody else an inkling, a tiny little bit of anything to be able to condemn them. Does me? Okay.
And I've had some issues in that area. But we worked through it, and I'm now recognizing, like, the more I learn about your Enneagram and why you tick, it's like, oh, okay, well, that explains why when I said like a little something about you could improve if you, and you're like, ah!
Yes, that's telling a type 1 that they can improve in an area is basically stabbing them with a knife. Even if it's truth, even if they do need improvement, they already know that they do, and it just really sucks to have anybody else point it out to them.
And it was good for me to feel the wrath of that back. Not that you were ugly to me, but just I could feel that, oh crap, I shouldn't have said that. But I did it with good intention, so it wasn't like I was trying to harm you in that. In fact, I had to articulate that to you. I'm on your side, Brittany. Like, I am not against you. I'm really trying to make you better. And da, 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 da. And you're like, yeah, I got this, bro.
So a couple of famous people that people know that are type 1s, Confucius, Plato, and I wrote one more somewhere. Oh, Gandhi. There you go. So those are kind of your other type 1s.
Confucius, Plato, and Gandhi. Is there a normal, not godly, super smart person on that list? Is there like Jennifer Aniston or something?
Oh. No, there wasn't. Like, I was looking at this list going, they're going to think I'm super self-righteous, and I'm not trying to be like this on the list.
Plato, Confucius, Gandhi, Brittanydavis.
Oh, yes. Oh, gosh. So at our highest self, type 1s, they're wise and they're transcending. Thank you. Hold on.
Transcending.
Thank you. That's the word. Thank you. I'm struggling with words today. They're very real is what I'm trying to get out. They're super real people. They don't hide behind any bullshit, which is me. Like, for a long time, my handle on Instagram was Real Food, Real Life, because everything just had to be real. That is me. They're extremely principled and self-driven kind of people. But on the complete opposite of that, on their unhealthy levels, they can be dogmatic and self-righteous and inflexible, and they condemn others, and they can be hypocritical. So those are some of our words.
I haven't seen a lot of those qualities in you, at least in your interaction with me, and you're pretty real with me, so I would see it if you're doing it. So good job of not expressing the negative.
Yeah, so as you see, if you go to Enneagram Institute, if you scroll down a little bit, it will tell you levels 1, 2, 3. These are like healthy. 4, 5, 6, they're like your mid. 7, 8, 9, those are the worst qualities that a 1 or any other type can show. And so this is just touching on a little bit of that. And ways for, go ahead.
I was going to say, what's the website for the Enneagram Institute? Is it enneagraminstitute.com?
Yes. Yeah. So ways for a thing that I threw in, because I love to. I caught myself there. I did. You saw that.
It's guys. She has a bad habit of saying, "Well, you know me," so she's catching herself. Good job.
I call myself. Okay. I like personal development and growth. And so I always like to look at these informations that's now been presented to me and find the area of growth that I need to work on. So for each type, I had to throw that in there. So for type 1s, two things that we can do is we have to loosen our expectations on life, on ourselves, on everything around us. And we have to learn to relax. Everything's not so serious. Everything doesn't have to be so black and white. It's okay to not be perfect. And I'm speaking to myself. So that is type 1.
That's a hard one for Brittany, I will assure you guys, because we have had many conversations where, yeah, I'm testing the limit of that, what you just said. Because the brain works, okay, and you just have to just accept that's who Brittany is.
That's who Brittany is, and Brittany works on it very hard.
And I do accept you for who you are, and that's part of this whole One Step Deeper process is interactions with other people. You're gonna have to play a little bit into their personality type, their Enneagram, or you're just not going to be able to go deeper.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And so moving on to number 2, my husband is a type 2 Enneagram. So that knowing his Enneagram has helped our marriage so much because he now knows my type and knows, like, if we have a disagreement, he knows why I think the way I do and how my brain is working versus I know how his brain is working. And so that really helps. So type 2 is known as the helper. And I'm just going to smile through this whole thing because I am describing my husband to a T. So the helper, their basic fear is of being unwanted or unworthy of love. Their basic desire is to feel loved. And some key motivations that they have is to be loved, to express love. They want to be needed. They need to be needed. They want others to respond to them. And they like to vindicate claims about themselves and have a tiny bit of, I did this kind of attitude.
Haughtiness and pride.
Yeah.
Did you hear me?
Yes.
Did you hear me? Haughtiness and pride?
I heard you say haughtiness and then it cut out. But pride, yeah. Yeah. Examples of type 2 would be Eleanor Roosevelt and Nancy Reagan. And I think those are some incredible women in history to be compared to.
So Wildman is the first lady.
I was looking at the list going, there's got to be some person in here that I can compare him to. And there really wasn't another good, like, famous, everybody would know this name person.
So you're confused and he's Nancy Reagan. Just say no. Just say no.
Oh, gosh. And so 2, that their highest self, they're deeply unselfish, like to their detriment, unselfish. They're compassionate and encouraging, and my husband is all of those things. In their unhealthy levels, they can be manipulative and self-serving. And because they do so much for other people, they like to take that thing and kind of hold it over and be like, oh, well, I did that for you, so now you owe me. And so that's more of an unhealthy level too. And I actually have some of those in my life. I won't name them. They can just see that themselves.
So they build up kind of this storage chest of accomplishments and things that they did for people so that then if it's an unhealthy relationship, I did all these things, so there's this quid pro quo. I did this, so thus you should do things for me.
Yes. And that's the more manipulative, unhealthy side of Enneagram 2. And some growth areas for them is please learn to put yourself above others sometimes. It's okay to have needs. Type 2s are very bad about never seeing their own needs and doing so much for other people. And it's just a story in the Bible is like Mary and Martha when Jesus, was over and Martha was just in the background just doing all the things. It's like, come on, why are you not doing anything? And, because that's a 2. They give and they give and they give and they give, and they're freaking out when people around them aren't doing the same thing.
But see, indirectly, it is filling a personal need, because their need is to be something for others. So indirectly it is, but the point is inwardly, not outwardly kind of need.
Yes, yes. And also, it is okay to ask for help. That's another one that twos have a really hard time with. And we won't have time to get into the wings, but I'm a one wing two. So I show a lot of this of I do not ask for help. I'm going to do it on my own. So anything else for you? Do you know a two in your life?
I'm sure I do, but none are coming to mind, or if they do, I'm not going to say it out loud who they are. But I think we all, as you're going through these 9, we all will see traits in there that are applicable to people in our lives, which is part of the point of us doing this today too. Like you said, start inwardly, look at yourself, learn about yourself. But then at some point you've mastered who you are. Now you kind of go, ooh, there's a 3, there's a 1, there's a 4, and just kind of like cascades.
Yeah, and I do that. And I'll say, if you haven't had the chance to take the test over at Eclectic Energies, listen to what I'm describing. Listen to any of these and see if you can pick out yours just by listening to these traits that I talk about, and then go take the test and see what you come up with. I pretty much can talk to someone and know their type because I've learned it so much. All right, yeah. So type 3.
You pegged me pretty quick. And then speaking of type 3.
Speaking of type 3, this is Jimmymoore. Yes. All right, so type 3s are known as the achiever. Their basic fear is of being worthless, and their basic desire is to feel valuable and worthwhile. Their motivations are they want to be affirmed, and they want to distinguish themselves above others, and they like to have intention, and they like to impress and admire. I love you.
Guilty.
Okay. Yes. So some examples are Arnold Schwarzenegger and Taylor Swift.
Shake it out. Shake it out.
At their highest, 3s are inner directed, and they're modest, they're gentle and energetic. And some unhealthy traits are kind of they covet what others have. That's the what I'm looking for. I'm struggling today. And they kind of have a do whatever it takes to prove their superiority, devious, untrustworthy, and vindictive. Those can be some unhealthy things that 3s have sometimes. Any thoughts on that, Mr. 3?
And the growth part?
Oh, goodness. So the growth challenge for type 3s is just be truthful and stop bragging. I didn't write this. This was on the thing. Okay, I just wrote down what they said. And take breaks. And I think those are all really good things to tell. I know other 3s besides just Jimmy, but that last one about taking breaks. Yeah.
I do. I've learned that lesson.
Yeah, I'm proud of you.
Well, thank you.
All right. Are you ready for 4?
Let's go.
All right, so type 4 are known as the individualists. Their basic fear is to have no identity or personal significance, and their basic desire is to find themselves. Motivations, they want to express themselves, maintain a certain mood, withdraw to protect self-image. They take care of their emotional needs before anything else. Some examples are Johnny Depp, and maybe somebody knows who this is, Alanis Morissette. I saw her name and I had to write that down.
Yes. You don't know who Alanis Morissette is?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Every song.
Like, wait a minute. You don't know who Alanis Morissette? Because you're like, I don't know if people will know. Alanis Morissette, and she the one that did, I'm a bitch, I'm a lover. I'll blame it on my 3. Keep going.
She did You Ought to Know, that one about, she was very upset in that song. But anyway.
Sing it.
No, sir.
She's like, I'm crazy.
Oh, no.
All right, keep going.
Okay, so
Uh,
at their highest, they're creative. Fours are typically like artistic type people. Um, they are inspired, self-aware, true to their self. They're honest, and they can be both serious and funny. My brother Trevor is a type 4, and he is the most serious and funny person simultaneously. It's almost shocking how those two things play together in his personality. And an area of growth for type 4s is avoid putting things off until you're in the mood, because you may not want to. You may have to actually set a specific time and goal. Sleep regularly, and don't play around too long in your imagination, because it can drift, and they can daydream for a long time and kind of get stuck there. All right, moving on to, I feel like I'm talking so much today, but moving on to type 5.
Like, I knew you were going to dominate this show, but by design, you know this stuff. I'm just kind of commentating and helping along the way.
Yeah, so type 5, my mom is a type 5, and so is my daughter, Darcy. Their basic fears of being useless, helpless, or incapable. They're very quiet, timid. Not timid, that's not really the word. They're very bold, but they're very reserved. And when you hear some examples, you'll know what I mean. Their basic desire is to be capable and competent. Their motivations are they want to possess knowledge and understand their environment. An example is Einstein, Stephen Hawking, and if you've ever seen the show House, Dr. Gregory House is an example of a type 5. So reserved, very intellectual. Typically, they pick one thing and they're super knowledgeable in that one area. And that is so true about my mom and true about my daughter. They're very quiet. Darcy, it makes people uncomfortable, but I know this about her personality, so it helps me. She thrives being alone. She loves to be in her room, in her space, in quiet. She loves to learn. And so it's nice to know that about her personality. Maybe if I didn't, I would think, oh, she just doesn't like us.
Although you did put her on your Instagram story the other night making dinner, and she was so proud of her meal that she made, a beef stew or something that she made, and she was cutting and doing all this stuff, and you said it kind of forced her to try mushrooms, and oh my gosh, it was so cool.
Yeah, I'm creative in my parenting to try to get her to try new things, and that was a really good experience to have her intertwined in choices and let her experience those things. So at their highest, 5s are visionaries, and they kind of take things in a whole. They observe everything, and they're often an expert in some particular field. So thinking of Einstein and Stephen Hawking and the things that they specialized in, they were extremely knowledgeable in that one area. Unhealthy versions of a 5 can be very reclusive and isolated from reality, and they kind of reject social attachments. They're not really social people. And Darcy does this. I tell the story all the time. When we were living at a different house, all 5 of us were outside. Me, my husband, my 3 girls were outside, and we were all playing and laughing. Next thing I know, I'm like, where's Darcy? She had gone inside because it clicked in her brain. Wait, everybody's outside, and now I can go inside and it can be quiet. And so I just left her alone, let her do her thing. But yeah, that's kind of your type of 5s.
They're the ones that are loving the pandemic.
They're like, pandemic, who I'm good. Yes. So an area of growth for them is you can kind of get trapped in your brain as a 5 and just kind of trapped in your imagination. So kind of come out of that when you can. Stay connected to people around you. It's okay to kind of fluidly go in and out of that desire to be inward and kind of challenge yourself to get out there some. And then also make an effort to find or create calm with yourself. All right, so type 6, they're known as the loyalist. Their basic fear is of being without support and to have security and support. They want security, they want to feel supported, reassurance. Some examples of a 6 is Ellen DeGeneres and Mark Wahlberg. Oh, Marky Mark. Yes, I know who Marky Mark is.
Marky Mark and the Fresh Prince. Back in the day.
Oh, yes. So at their highest, they're self-affirming. They trust themselves and they trust others, and they themselves are trustworthy. Unhealthy, they begin to get panicky and kind of volatile, and they feel like everybody around them is kind of out to get them. Um, and an area of growth is realizing that anxiousness is normal. It's not unusual to feel anxious, and kind of allow yourself to be there and kind of feel that. Be aware of your pessimism. Sixes tend to be pretty pessimistic people, so be aware of that. And learn your triggers. In the Enneagram Institute, they said learn your triggers for overreaction, but I don't have time to get into the fact that nobody ever overreacts. They only react appropriately to the experiences that they've had in life. But we'll just say overreaction for now because that's what they said. That was my Brittanyism.
That sounds like a whole nother One Step Deeper episode we need to talk about. Reacting versus overreacting.
Yes. All right. So type 7. 7 is a 1 opposite. And I have a daughter. My oldest daughter is a 7, and they're known as the enthusiast. Their basic fear is of being deprived or in pain. Their basic desire is to be satisfied and content in life. They want to maintain their freedom and happiness, and they don't want to miss out on anything. God forbid they miss out on anything. They will be devastated. And they like to keep themselves excited.
The FOMO is real.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. You know what's sad? You taught me what FOMO was. Like, I would see it everywhere. I'm like, what is that? Yeah.
Cami is the existence of FOMO.
Yeah, absolutely. She definitely.
Fear of missing out for those.
Yeah, for anybody.
Brittany.
Yes.
It amazes me. She's 20 years younger than me, guys, but I know like cultural things that she's like, wait, what? But you taught me a lot too. So.
Oh gosh. Cami the other day said, Mom, that's so sus. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
You hang around teenagers that teach you some vernacular as well.
Oh, yes. But an example of a type 7 is Jim Carrey, Amelia Earhart, and Steven Spielberg. Those are some examples of a type 7.
Right.
At their highest.
I said,
right. Oh, Jim Carrey is my favorite.
Yes.
Yeah. Jim Carrey is my all-time favorite actor. I love him. At their highest, they're deeply grateful, and they're kind of awed by the simple wonders in life. And so I look up to my daughter so much because the smallest thing can just bring her so much joy, and she sees the awe in the simple things in life.
When I came to see you earlier this year, Cami gave me a handmade greeting card, you guys. Like, she drew this elaborate little flowery thing on the front, and she had like a little message on the inside. And when she gave it to me, you could see her beaming with pride, and it was just awesome.
Yes. She keeps me grounded since she is my opposite. I try to observe her and her tendencies and try to be more like Cami. At an unhealthy level, they are impulsive. That is so true. And they don't know when to stop, and they're kind of erratic. And that can definitely be true with my daughter. So for growth, recognize their impulsiveness, listen to others, and choose quality over quantity. So I think that's a good way to go with that. On to type 8. Type 8s tend to get a bad rap. They're known as the challenger, so their name kind of gives you an idea of where we're going with this. But I know some 8s in my life, and they're not as challenging of a personality as you would think. You just have to know and understand where they're coming from, why they believe the things they do, what their basic fears are. And so that's another reason why, for me, Enneagram has really changed my life with my personal relationships, because I know these things. So the type 8 I have in my life is my best friend, Winston. Winston's like 17 or 18. He's a kid, but I love Winston. Their basic fear is being harmed or controlled by others, and their basic desire is to protect themselves. Their motivations are they want to be self-reliant, they want to resist weakness, and they want to dominate their environment, and they like to stay in control. And this kind of personality can come off extremely rough when you're talking about somebody who wants to dominate their environment. That can come off really rough. And just wait till I tell you, y'all probably already know who the example is of this personality type. Donald Trump, Jack Nicholson, and another one is actually Martin Luther King Jr. And so I think that kind of gives you the balance of one extreme versus the other. I won't go into detail there, but just saying, knowing this, that their basic fear is of being controlled, you can see why they kind of puff their chest up and, you know, act that way, because they don't want to show weakness at all. At their highest self, they're merciful, courageous, willing to sacrifice themselves to achieve whatever their goals are. They're very confident and authoritative. An unhealthy level can be ruthless and hard-hearted, kind of delusionally believing in their power and kind of vengeful. It's always hard for me to talk about the negatives of a personality type. I never want to point those out, but they are the truth, that they're there.
But look, I mean, if we're going to go one step deeper, you have to take the bad with the good. Like, there is no good that doesn't come with some bad and some really bad. Like, let's don't pretend like all of these personality types in these Enneagram numbers don't express in really bad ways. Like, yeah. I would love to know, what was Hitler?
I did not look that up, but
based on what you know about him.
Yeah, Hitler. I'm gonna have to go with 8. I'm gonna have to say 8.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of kind of along that lines, Osama bin Laden was a 1. So there's that.
Yeah, that's can be expressed extremely good, like Brittanydavis, or extremely on the opposite side, like Osama bin Laden. So it's like, yeah. So you can't just say, well, this person was this. Well, you could say this person was this to the worst degree, or you can say this person was this number to the best degree. I would love to kind of see one of these Enneagram sites, and there's lots of them, by the way, on Instagram. If you go on Instagram, just type in Enneagram or do a hashtag Enneagram, you'll find all these people that interpret Enneagram numbers all the time. But I would love to see them say, okay, here are examples of these numbers at the very best, and then like average, like bad, and then really bad.
Yeah, I'm sure it's out there somewhere. Yeah, I wrote down a couple of places that I like. There's a brand new podcast, like December, brand new, called You've Got a Type. And that's Colton Simmons, and he's also on Instagram. And I like his very short, I mean, I'm talking like one was 4 minutes, one was 20 minutes, very short little podcast excerpts on Enneagram and different types of the Enneagram. That's a good place to go. On Instagram, Enneagram Ashton and Enneagram and Coffee are some really good places that I go just to get some fun memes about my type and other people's types.
I love it too, because you'll take screenshots when you see something about a 3 that you're like, this is so you, Jimmy. And I'm like, yes, it is.
Yes. So some growth areas for an 8 can be, remember that your power lies within your inspiration, and learn that it is okay at times to yield to others, and it's okay to depend on other people. I know you want to depend on yourself, but it is okay to depend on other people sometimes. And type 9, the final one, they're known as the peacemaker. Their basic fears of loss and separation. Their basic desires to have inner stability and peace of mind, and some motivations for them. They like to create harmony. They like to avoid conflicts and resist whatever would disturb them. And they can become kind of laxical in confrontation when it needs to happen. And they're just like, whatever, I don't even want to worry about it. So they could you can see where that would go the opposite way of healthy. An example of this is Morgan Freeman and Whoopi Goldberg. So kind of your peacemakers. At their highest, they have contentment in themselves. They feel alive. They're receptive, emotionally stable. They're supportive, and they're a good mediator. An unhealthy version would be repressed, incapable of facing problems, neglectful. They dissociate and become kind of numb to everything around them. So some places of growth for a 9. Force yourself to pay attention to what's around you and try not to daydream. This is another one that can kind of get lost in their mind. I think we all can in some way. Recognize aggressions that are around you and even within yourself. When you tend to numb things for so long and you push them down and push them down, you kind of have this tendency to explode because you've quieted it for so long. It's okay to feel the feelings. I say that a lot. Examine your relationships and how both that person contributes to it and also yourself. You can, if you're pushing down things that you need to address within your relationship and then you explode and then something happens to the relationship, you have to realize that there was some fault of your own that then led to that. And that covers all 9.
So questions now, because you mentioned earlier, we're all some primary number and then a wing of the other number. We're not going to get real deep into the wings. Just know that when you have a primary number, you express traits generally in the number next to you. So you're a 1, wing 2. Your husband's a 2, wing 3. I'm a 3, wing 2. I could have gone the other way, but it's 3, wing 2. I've had a few people since I started talking about Enneagram openly in my work that say they take the test and they're almost exactly the same number in like 3 or 4 categories. What's going on with those people?
So those aren't necessarily a wing. Your wing is always the number next to you. So if you're a 1, you can either be a 1, wing 9 or a 1, wing 2 and all the way around. That is your wing. And then you have in the name of this is slipping my mind, of course. Then you have other things that you can kind of vibe with. I am least like a 6, and I think the one that comes right next to mine, I cannot remember my list. It's been so long since I've taken the test, but a lot of the times you can show attributes of another one and be really close in line, but you do have one kind of basics. And if that happens, I would kind of tell people, go back and take the test again and make sure you're answering things as truthfully as you can and avoid putting neutral as much as you can.
Yeah. So in the test, you guys, at eclecticenergies.com, just to remind you, it's like I feel strong about this. No, I don't feel that way at all, or neutral. And then it's like 5 different things that you can type. If you do neutral on a bunch of them, it's not going to really give you an accurate. I mean, you either feel kind of strong or really strong on things, one way, positive or negative. It's very rare you're neutral on a lot of things, unless that in and of itself is a personality type to want to be neutral on all those things.
Yeah, yes. So I would just say if you have something where it comes up where it's not definitive of what you are, then take the test again and make sure you're being 100% truthful with your answers and avoid that neutral position.
And read the questions carefully. I mean, the questions are pretty straightforward, and they'll even throw ones in there multiple times. I did notice that just as an observer, where there's similar questions just asked a different way to see if you're consistent in your answer. So just be aware that if you're like, oh yeah, this is me, yeah, definitely strongly me, and then another answer, same question, this is not me at all, it's going to go, okay, wow, they're really confused. Yes. What number can we give them for really confused?
Yes, and I knew mine right away because when I say like my next closest one was late, way down. Like one was way over here and my next one's like way back here. Like it was no question what I was.
Right.
And Jimmy, you're the same way.
Yeah, mine was, I want to say like 80 something percent mine. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, it's so fascinating. And, and some people might take this kind of test and go, yeah, it's kind of hokum. Come on. Like, can you really like know your personality type? But it's like it uses kind of an equation of ways that you react to life, and what we talk about a lot on this show, going one step deeper, is about how you react to life. And so I really do hope you guys watching this and listening on the podcast, you do go take that test, because it's going to tell you so much about yourself. And here we are at the beginning of a new year. What better time to kind of start working on yourself in a productive way? I can tell you guys, since I took the test, like now I realize why I'm kind of an overachiever, why I work as hard as I do. I still don't back away from it as much. I'm trying, but it's just, I understand a little bit more of why I do the things that I do. And you're going to learn so much about yourself that when we start bringing up topics on this podcast, you're going to go, oh, it's because I'm this number, and that makes sense now.
Yes, and Enneagram is never meant to condemn you. It's meant to be used as information about this particular type of personality where you could possibly use to grow. And it describes, just like you were saying, it describes the why behind the what you do. And so I knew for years I was perfectionist. My mom knew when I was 5 years old that I was a perfectionist, and I didn't know until I was older in life, well, I have that perfectionist tendency for a lot of reasons, but it shows up a lot because of my personality, and that I desire to be seen as good, and good equals perfect in my brain.
So a lot of people would be listening to this as well, and knowing that we both went through some childhood trauma. Does trauma shape you into a number of some sort, or was the number there and it just might express itself, that number, in different ways based because you had the trauma? What impact does kind of your environment have on the number you'll end up getting on this test?
Well, Colton Simmons talks about Enneagram being fluid, and it's really fluid. And if you ever look at Enneagram, it's a circle, and then there's lines, and those lines connect with each other. And this goes way deeper than we have time for, but like the opposite of 1 in a growth period looks like a 7, and when they're in their stress, they look like a 4. And so that's where it's just all interconnected, and there's so much fluid going on. So for example, of myself, when I begin to get stressed, I tend to show, yes, thank you for pulling that up. I didn't know how I was going to be able to bring that up, but you can see it's all interconnected. And for a type 1, like I was saying, when they're in a stress period, they start showing the worst attributes of a 4. And so going back to 4, it's self-inhibiting, angry, they can be depressed and alienated and emotionally paralyzed. I actually think I missed that earlier, saying that out loud. I don't remember saying that. But yes, and so in a growth period of 1, the opposite of 1, if you look at the arrow, they kind of connect together. And so that's just another part of it. And so taking into consideration trauma, I think when we have trauma, it tends to lean us more towards that other side of ourselves. So bringing my trauma into it, the worst of the worst 1, I kind of lean towards a 4, and just more erratic, more emotionally paralyzed, and that showed up in my life. And so I don't know what yours is off the top of my head. Actually, I wrote it down. So you in a growth period would be a 6, and so right. You would the best. Yeah, so like the best version of a 6 when you're in a growth period, and then when you're in a stress period, you'd be like the worst of the worst 9, so more repressed, incapable of facing problems.
So see, guys, like a triangle, those of you watching on the YouTube feed, there's a triangle for stress, see the 3 to the 9 she was talking about, and then 3 to the 6. Yeah, I love it. And that's very, very advanced. And I love the whole head, heart, gut feeling.
Yes.
Get really deep in the weeds on this if you want to. But I think it all starts with people knowing at least what their core number is. So guys, really, really do this. eclecticenergies.com. Take the long form version of this test. And it's free. Like, that's the cool thing too. It's no cost. It's free. And there's plenty of resources out there that help you interpret it. They give you a few resources when they give you your score and everything, but go look it up on other websites. Once you know what your number is, then you kind of go down the rabbit hole and you're like, ooh, I want to learn more. What makes me tick? And like, you're going to help your relationships in your life. I know you talked about you really like everybody you talk to take the test. I didn't even hesitate when you said, hey, will you take this test? I'm like, absolutely. And it was kind of exciting for me.
Yes, I was so excited when I never thought in the beginning, like, hey, Jimmy, take this. And we had been friends for a while before I was like, hey, take this. But it really helped, even though I knew like your tendencies and I kind of had a guess of what number you were and how you showed up. It was really good to read more in depth. And so I know the basics, but every time I find somebody new in my life, I'm like, go take this. And then I'll just kind of go look up their quirks. And I love to do this with my friends and in particular, my family. It took me forever to get my brother to take the Enneagram because I don't believe in that stuff. And he took it and I was like, thank you, because I just felt like I knew him so much better.
Isn't he the one that you recently got back and he was a 4 and you never had a 4 in your life? Yeah.
Yes, he must be a 4.
Yeah. So it can enrich your life. And again, guys, thinking about New Year's resolutions, this is the week people usually do that. What better way than to try to better yourself by understanding yourself? And if you got family that you think would be willing to take it, have your kids take this, or your spouse take this, or your girlfriend, boyfriend, anybody that you care about. It would be really helpful. And again, we're not selling anything with the Enneagram other than trying to help you better yourself. And when we bring up Enneagram on this podcast, you're not like, Ennea what?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I just pushed this so hard because I feel like Enneagram was the very start of my personal development journey. I really do. I think learning the way I tick and the way I think and how I process things and taking that as just raw data, not judging myself like I tend to do, not hating on myself because I'm a certain way, just accepting, okay, this is my personality type. When this happens, I act this way, or when this happens, I act this way. I try to observe that. And because now I have this information, I can kind of come back to myself quicker. So if I react and I'm acting more like a stressed out 4 and an unhealthy type 4, and I start to become emotionally, paralyzed, that's the word, become emotionally paralyzed, I quickly am like, okay, bring it back, feel the feels, all right, bring it back, come on, let's get back to our tendencies. And so, yeah, it's just really good information to have. And I think if you are looking to start on a personal development journey, start here, learn about yourself, dive deep, learn about you. If you have a spouse or a significant other in your life, do that next. See how they interact. And it will really help with disagreements. I feel like ever since I did this, my husband and I don't disagree a lot. But having this for when we do disagree, I know that he just wants to feel loved, and he has a tendency of like turning off any argument. And I'm very rational. I want to lay it all out in front of me. I want to talk about it. I want to hit this point, this point, this point. And he's more just like, I don't care. I love you. And so now that I know this about him, he knows it about me. It just helps us kind of flow better. I love Enneagram. Can you tell?
I have heard, yes. Guys, when we were talking about doing this episode, she's like, yes, I can't wait for the Enneagram. Oh, okay, it's Enneagram. Did I hear you? Enneagram? Really? Enneagram? Are we going to talk about Enneagram? I'm like, Brittany, that's obsessive. Yes, I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. Perfectionist. in your diary notebook. Oh, I love your perfectionism so much.
It shows up very well in some areas in my life. It really does. And I am heck proud at myself right now, at the new ventures in my life and my willingness to accept being more like a 7 and be more spontaneous and adventurous and taking that on. I feel like having you in my life, and I've really been able to step outside of my perfectionist tendencies. Obviously, that's my basis. That's where I sit. That's where I kind of set up camp. But I'm glad to kind of move about all the other numbers and explore myself through this. And I love the interaction from everybody here. I love everybody interacting, and I really hope we have people interacting with us on Sunday. I think that's so great. I want to know your type. Just please, I want to interact with you.
Yeah, guys, if you've already run the Eclectic Energies test and you know what your number is, let us know about it. Like, we would love to hear. Come engage on the One Step Deeper Instagram page or the Facebook page. You can write to us through the onestepdeeperpodcast.com website. You can just send us an email. We would definitely love to hear you. It would be cool to maybe do a live or something. I know we talked about doing that possibly, so we could easily do that on like the Instagram page for One Step Deeper Podcast. So go follow us over there, you guys. One Step Deeper Podcast on Instagram, One Step Deeper Podcast community over on Facebook, and onestepdeeperpodcast.com. So what topics do we have coming up here in 2021? We've got several, I know, already in the can, ready to go.
Why would you ask me that? My perfectionist brain just shut down.
Let's just say what you've seen the first 6 episodes, you ain't seen nothing yet. Like, literally, I think we had about 20 written down, different things. And guys, quite frankly, we want to hear from you too. Are there like topics that you want us to talk about? I'm sure we've thought of them, but we would love to have your input. Definitely go to onestepdeeper.com. Oh, her perfectionist brain won't let her not look up what we wrote down. I love you so much. That's funny. Throw off a few of them. What we got?
All right. So we already covered Can't Change What You Hate. Go watch that one if you haven't done that one. That's a great one for the new year. Reparenting ourselves. We definitely need to talk about that. And talking emotions with children. That's another one of my wheelhouses, talking about emotions with children. How to break the mold. Wow, I wrote Can't Change What You Hate twice. Apparently that was a big one.
You still can't change what you hate.
Happiness is not a final destination. I think we kind of talked about a teeny bit in this episode.
Yeah.
Turning your pain into purpose. Getting there won't bring you happiness. I think that one's kind of interconnected with the other one. Generational norms. Ooh, can't wait to talk on that one. Radical curiosity. The transformative power of yes. Say yes to your story. The blame game. I mean, we got them. Like, I can keep going. Like, this is just a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, one for you. I think you came up with this one. Can we achieve outside of our trauma? That's a good one. So yeah, we're loaded. We're ready to bring it all. And please, yes, like Jimmy said, please, if you have a topic you want us to talk on, send it our way, because I'm sure we got something to say.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the fun part about this show. When we created One Step Deeper as a podcast, I'm like, we have deep conversations all the time. So it's not like we're going to have a few episodes, it's going to get repetitive. No, I don't think anything about this show is repetitive. You know me, like, that's the only repetitive thing in this show. I'm just kidding. Love you, mean it.
It hurt my brain when you do that.
Oh, you're fine. Well, guys, we are loaded for bear in 2021. Check us out, One Step Deeper Podcast. Hopefully, we're all over where you can listen to podcasts now. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. Go look us up, One Step Deeper Podcast, onestepdeeperpodcast.com. Brittany, we will see you again next week.
All righty.
Bye.